Welcome to Holding Space with Authentically Amy. This is a place where you don't have to perform, prove, or hold it all together. You're allowed to exhale, to feel, to speak, or just be. Here, your truth is safe, your emotions are honored, and your soul is gently invited to the surface. I'm not here to fix you because I don't believe you're broken. I believe your soul already knows the way. My role isn't to give you advice, but to hold a steady frequency of love so you have space to rise. This podcast is an extension of my own healing. If you're here, you belong, and I'm honored to sit beside you. Welcome to another episode of Holding Space with Authentically Amy. I'm your host, Amy Thurman, and I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for tuning in, tagging along, and sharing all that we have going on here. You guys are loving this concept of holding space for people, and I'm just so grateful. Thank you so much to Eric for being here. I'm so glad you're here, Eric. Welcome.
Thank you for welcoming me. It's great to spend some time and connect with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to visit with you, get to know you a little bit better, and just see where the conversation takes us. So, as you know, I'm here to hold space for you. I just like to say if there's anything that feels heavy on your heart that you might like to talk about, I'm here to hold space for that. So, I'm going to turn it over to you and we'll just take it from there.
Yeah, I think we have recency bias always, I think, in the human experience, but I think there's a lot of things that are happening in our world, in our lived experience, currently and kind of in the next few years. And a lot of those things, like AI has become like a big thing. And while like there's been other big revolutions in technology that have changed how people live and work and play and how countries and trade and things like that have gone, like things I think of like technology and farming and how people used to be involved in how many people used to be involved in farming, and now it's a small percentage of people because of technology and the internet providing a whole different opportunity for people to connect over the world and do so many different things. But it also, had changes with it. We see that happening with AI, which is so many different things, and it's here to stay. It's another thing that is a multi-tool, a productivity thing. And it's going to give us a lot of things back. It's going to give us a lot of gifts, but there's going to be, like anything else, there's a lot of trade-offs that are already starting to come, and we're at the very beginning of kind of what I call the hockey stick of how AI is going to impact us. A lot of things are still new and still rapidly changing. So for me, what's on heavy on my heart is people's purpose. We are going to have most, in the best, in the non-dystopian, version of AI in our lives. It's going to free up time for a lot of people. It's going to help them, give them opportunity. But with the opportunity, some people take the opportunity and create great things with it, and other people, have idle hands or idle time and fill it with negative things. And so I really, well, I think it's a gift. We had kind of some experiment with this recently with, COVID lockdowns a few years ago. And people had some more time. There was very many things going on in addition to that, so it's a little bit different, but a lot of people had time that they didn't have before. And it was interesting
Mm.
to see the various, some people reinvented themselves, some people took it as a time to slow down and be present and change things, some people just waited it out, some people blossomed into a new version of themselves, some people destroyed themselves. And
Mm.
so I see the same kind of thing happening here with kind of the AI revolution that we're on, where I hope people, my heart is, I hope that people find purpose, because a lot of people's purpose is identified with work and labor. And if some of that shifts, or it looks different, or they only use a fraction of their week to do some of those things, in a lot of industries, what comes with that time? What do they do? What do they build? What do they get up in the morning? What is their why? What is their purpose? So I've been thinking a lot about that. I have, uh, put a lot of thought into that and talked to other people, and I hear other people talking about it as well. And it's one of those things that's interesting. I think it is a great opportunity for people. For me, I have so many interests. I don't ever feel like I have enough time. I have to prioritize the things and I consider myself a Renaissance man with a lot of different interests, but there's still like always the list of things that, well, I'm not going to have time to do that. It's not something that makes it on the priority list. But if you had more
Yeah.
time, could you get to those things?
Oh my gosh, such a good. Oh my gosh, my brain is just like, oh, which part of this do I want to jump into? Because there are so many areas of this that I relate to, and it's so funny because just yesterday, at the time of this recording, just yesterday, I went to my doctor and I saw his PA, the physician's assistant, and my doctor and the physician's assistant are retiring in just a couple months. And so I was saying, it was great to work with you. I wish you well. And the conversation went in a direction I didn't expect it to. She said, I didn't plan to retire, but AI has made it so that I think I'm ready to retire. And I said, okay, help me, do you mind sharing more about that? And she said, when they go to enter their notes, as a physician, that now they have this AI generated bot. She said, his name is Al. I don't know who's behind Al. I don't know who it is. She said, he puts these notes in there for me. It doesn't sound anything like me. And I have to go in there and I have to change it to make it sound like me. And she said, so I think the reason I got into becoming a doctor is not the same. And it's time for me to step out of it. And I could sense that she felt a little bit lost. Like she just said, I don't really know what I'm going to do with my time. And I said to her, you know what? You have such a heart for helping people. You will find another way to be able to help people. It may look different than what you're doing now, but you can find another way to still use your gifts to help people. And she stopped and just like thought, like that set with her. Like she hadn't really thought about that. And so this conversation, I feel like it's perfect timing for that, what you're bringing up here, because I'd never really thought about it until yesterday. And now you're making such good points about it. It is a conversation that we need to be having.
Absolutely. And a lot of people don't have purpose. They're just assume that they're busy and their schedule's filled, or their purpose is what they're doing, or they identify purpose with their work or their role. And even if they have families, other things like that, a lot of people, beyond their family, it's like the other element of their life. Well, yeah, I go to work, or, I have the profession, or I have a career. And then, there's things like, climbing the corporate ladder. And a lot of people have wanted to do things like that, where that just becomes their identity. And maybe they've foregone having a family, or doing other things because they've really been committed to the work. Well, when that's taken away, whether it's retirement or AI or whatever, if you're given more time, or it completely like switches up, and let's just say it does give everybody more time in the day, and we don't have to do our idea of work as it's been the last, 100-ish years or whatever, with this kind of 9 to 5, which was its own creation and had its own
Right?
purpose and everything like
Yeah.
that. It hasn't always been like that in villages and cultures for thousands of years. That's a new creation too, but we've all lived with that
Yeah.
through our entire lives. Well, when that gets disrupted, which I feel like it will, well, what does that look like? And how do people retrain themselves, and what do they fall back upon? And, and I think part of that foundation comes from, what do they do now while they're engaged with these other things? Do they have other things that they are passionate about, that give them purpose, that they are pursuing? And I look at my own group. There's things that I do. I volunteer in the community. I help other entrepreneurs. I receive mentorship. I give mentorship. Like, I do a lot of things like that. And I've had friends, very good friends of mine, question, well, why do you do that? It's not about transactions. And I'm like, well, the money does follow because you develop deeper relationships and connections. But let's say the transactions
Hmm.
are off the table. I don't do it for the transactions. I don't think of it in a
Yeah.
transactional mindset. Or it's not a
Right.
financial transaction, it's an emotional, it's a connection, it's the doing the right thing, it's caring
Hmm.
about, your community, it's being part of something bigger than yourself, which is really what community is and what people are all really craving. And so there's lots of ways for us to have that outside of a transactional marketplace. But if you don't have those type of things, and I know a lot of people that don't have those things and they haven't intentionally mixed them in, what do you fall back on?
Yeah.
Or just even say it's a traditional retirement model that we have right now, like the doctor that you mentioned. Okay, they retire. Now what do they do? They probably have money in the bank. They've probably done well. That's great. But do they sit around all day? Do they give in to vices? What do they do? And we've seen a lot of data now with kind of like the baby boomer generation, and a little bit before, a lot of that early generation. Some of these people worked their whole lives, waited, delayed gratification, and then now we're seeing them pass away a few years after retirement because their health just goes down because they don't have that routine and that purpose. And for them, they felt like
Hmm.
they earned it, But, I talked to one gentleman that I know real well, and he's like, oh, yeah, I give back and I'm a former CEO. I have lots of money. He goes, but I go volunteer so I keep sharp and I talk to younger people and I have a schedule and I have these things that I volunteer because he's like, all my friends just sit around and play golf and drink all day on the patio. And he's like, I see their health just doing this. And he's like, they're living this
Mm.
retirement dream, but he goes, it's not going to work out well for them. They're not going to have any longevity. So those are some of the things that I've seen with that. And I have concerns for people that don't have that, that purpose that's part of like what they do already. So when that time comes, whether it's retirement or AI disruption or whatever, what do they fall back upon?
Yeah, it really is so important. And it's interesting because I am like you seeing a shift of things are changing, things are shifting. Like I think you're aware, most people who watch this podcast are aware of what I do, that's one of that's my main thing is that I help people figure out and understand who they are beyond what they do. Like we aren't what we do, we are who we are, but we don't know who we are. So that's what I help people do is figure out who they are. And I have seen most people were coming to me because they wanted to figure out who they are, but now it's shifting into like they need to, like what you're talking about, like it's almost required for them. They don't know who they are or what they like to do, but they have to figure it out now because of all these other changes that you're talking about. And it's great for me because I'm like, I've been saying this for years. Like it's finally happening.
We've been
People are
beating the
realizing
drum.
it, right? But it's really difficult for people to transition that in their minds of exactly what you're saying. I get my sense of self-worth and my accomplishment from what I do and how much I can do, not from who I am. But
Mhm.
this shift is helping us learn to figure out where our joy lives. That's one of the things that I really encourage people to do is follow their joy. But what I find is most people don't know what that is. They don't have time. They never have space in their life to figure out what brings them joy or what they like to do. So I always suggest that they take at least an hour a week, hopefully one full day a week, to do only things that they want to do. There's nothing on your calendar, there's nothing on your schedule. I call it the sacred pause, that you put the sacred pause in your calendar and you only do what you want to do. And Eric, people freak out. They're like, what do you mean? I don't know what to do, you know?
Yeah. So imagine having that be every day, how that would compound, and if that change happens overnight and it's not gradual, how are people going to sit with that? We're going to
Mm.
have, and that I see a lot of different outcomes, of how people would handle it. And some people would see it as a gift and other people would see it as a curse, right? Because they're so used to the routine and the schedule. And, it's a very common thing for people to say, oh, I'm really busy. And I'm like, great. My goal is to be productive. And if I can be
Uh,
productive, I'm probably being more efficient. It's very easy to be busy. It's very easy to find things to fill your time. We have endless ways to do that. And a lot of the things that aren't great, let's just say like doom scrolling on social media or something. People fill, 4.5 hours a day, or they're filling their time. They're busy. They're not able to do many other things when they're doing that. They're not fully present or able to give themselves to
mhm.
something else while they're doing that task, including driving, unfortunately. But,
Right.
but if they're not able to have that, investment in other things, like what's really happening with them? What's the output of that? And so I think the productivity, if you're productive, and I think, like the AI portion of things is an efficiency of productivity tool. And so if we can be uber productive and get the same kind of outputs for a fraction of the time, it gives us an opportunity. And really, I think that's kind of the grandiose thing, is that using a tool like this that can compound things and give us these type of time back, it actually, while it's technology, it gives us a chance to go back and be human. It gives us a chance to actually go back and have more time to reestablish human connection, because we've been, as technology's advanced, we've gone farther and farther away as far as like connections and connectivity and things like that. Even though we have technology that brings us together, there's a lot of outcomes with that. And so that's the positive side of things that I see that could happen, is that, when it comes down to business or relationships, well, great. Yeah. Maybe all your administrative and billing and stuff happens in a fraction of the time and it's all done by AI agents. Well, now you don't have to spend the time doing that. So You can go have a lunch in person with someone every single day, or maybe you didn't weren't able to do that ever, or once a week at tops or something like that. Or maybe you can show up for
Yeah.
your children or your family and, be at a practice at 3 p.m. on it where you couldn't do that on a work day before. So, I see
Yeah.
opportunities for people, but I also see with some of the things we've had that people won't do things positive with that time. They might turn to other vices.
It's so true. It requires us to be present. We don't really know how to be present. We're always living in the future or in the past, stuck in what happened to us, being a victim, or in the future what we want to do, but we never are sitting with who we are and where we are right now. And that's the piece that actually gets us to where we want to be in the future, but we completely miss that. We can't get to that place that we want to be in the future without being where we are now, and understanding and being present where we are now. And that's one of the things about, the sacred pause that I teach is it forces you to be present. You have to be present. And I will say this is so illogical. It makes absolutely no sense, but it has played out in my life over and over again. Every time I do a sacred pause, it becomes the most productive, the most abundant times of my life. And people are like, but you're not really doing anything. And I'm like, I'm being. Like, being myself is the most productive thing I can do. And people just really have trouble wrapping their heads around that. But I
Sure.
see you nodding, so you get it.
Yeah, they got to try it. Don't knock it
Yeah.
until you've tried it. Yeah, because it's just going against their norms. It's going against their limiting beliefs or their perceptions of what productivity is. And they're like, "Well, you're not doing anything." I'm like, "You actually are doing something, and even
Yes.
intentionally not doing something or just being present, it's doing something. It's just not. It's a different definition of what they would call doing something. But there's a high intentionality with that, and I feel, my wife and I, that was a big thing that I think has been a blessing for us is that we are self-aware people, but we have a high intentionality of everything that we do. And that allows us to be planners, to look at things, to understand from the past, to have a plan for the future, but it allows us to actually be present because for me, I'm a planner. I'm a thinker. I'm always, I get up and I go every morning. My mind is just on. I don't need motivation when I get out of bed. I have so many thoughts
Yeah.
going on. So for me, I'm like, I need to analyze and plan. But when the more you have kind of a framework of those, you know that life is going to give you something different and your plan's not going to go in a straight line. It's going to go. But if you have enough of that, you're in the right rooms, you're in the right approach, or you're in advantageous position at least if you're not sure because you can't predict the future. So when you're in a better position, you usually have better outcomes. I call it making your own luck. Where it's like certain people
Yeah.
just do better because they have set themselves up better for that, and part of that is being intentional as opposed to just winging it all the time. But then what's beautiful is why you have those intentional things that you do, the most wonderful things happen in between, the unexpected things, the fact that you're there. And I think that's what you were just talking about is like, hey, if you made time for yourself to be present and focused, that's when you get all the gifts that come in. And so even if it's like a
Yeah.
trip plan that you have, like you might plan where you're going to stay and how you're going to get there, and you need to have some of those plans. But when you get there and you're walking through the streets, well, that's when the magic happens. You connect with another person, you have a great, impromptu dining experience, something happens, where you see something, nature or, connection with someone, those are the things that you remember, but it's also that intentionality and being present that open the gate for all those type of things that happened.
Oh, it's so true. All these P words. I'm sitting here thinking, pausing in the present is productive. Like, I
Yes,
love that. Like, that's my new tagline, Eric.
I love it.
Pausing in the present is productive. But it makes me think. I I use the term energy. People
Mm.
take it in a different way, but our energy is constantly occupied by something. We're thinking about or doing something. So our energy is constantly filled, and there's no space, no room for those things that we want to come in. Like, we're constantly begging, pleading, even praying for things to happen or things to change, but we're not allowing an opening space for those to come in because we're filling it with all these other things.
Yeah.
So when we open up that space, then it allows those things to just settle in. Like they literally in my life, they just drop in as soon as I allow space. And that's how it really works. It doesn't make sense, but that's how it really works. And it is so powerful. We can add that. Pausing in
Yeah.
the present is productive and powerful.
Yeah. I love it. As a marketer, by trade, I like alliteration, and having
Yeah.
everything start with the first letter. That's great. It makes it
Yeah.
memorable. When you have things that
Yeah.
all start with the same letter or they rhyme, those are all good things. That's why we remember the jingles and those type of things too. So,
Yeah. So fun. Yeah, it's so important. But I love this that you brought this up about AI. And, I had never really thought about its connection to COVID. And you mentioned that earlier, that you saw all the changes in us that came about during COVID. But I had never like put it side by side with AI and maybe anticipated some of the same things. So would you elaborate on that a little bit?
yeah, I mean, it's part of it was there was found time, right? Whereas a lot of people were at home or close to home or, even for an extended period of time. And so you had this kind of trigger event and, take aside the, what it was, but on what people perceived from their own individual circumstance. But look at like the time. Most people had more time to do something. And some people, started making like sourdough and gardening and things like that. Sometimes they wrote the book that was always in their mind that they wanted to do. They, got back to playing an instrument or being an artist or, whatever it is. They launched a new business. And then other people like toiled. They drank too much. They fought. There was divorce rates, abuse rates, all these horrible, outcomes of the family unit and destruction and kids that normally go, for example, go to school as a safe place. Now they're at home and they can't escape and like the ripples of all that kind of stuff that's happening. Well, the COVID was a trigger thing, but I see as AI is a different thing with some of the similar challenges and opportunities. And for every person that is out there that might, launch their book, or a podcast or, volunteer or whatever it is and have something that gives them purpose and joy, something that they are really present and they've always wanted to do or want to lean more into. And now they've made time for that. You have the other people that don't have those things, aren't looking for those things, and are going to fill that time with something else, which could be very destructive to themselves or others. And so that's
Mm,
really just kind of what I see. It's that challenge opportunity, depending on how the mindset, people have. With you and your personal story, you obviously are very present and have a very strong understanding of, who you are and the gifts that you have and what you're able to do and have impact for others. So I wouldn't worry as much about someone like yourself because you're very
yeah.
aligned in that. But for someone who hasn't gone through some of the things that you have gone through, you've had a lot of things that really were traumatic and disruptive in your life. If people haven't had
Hmm.
those, what do they fall back upon, right? It's just
Yeah.
like police or military or whatever, we fall, lifeguards, you fall back on your training. And if we haven't trained and
Yeah.
we haven't thought about itself, just like what you talked about, like, using that one day a week, if people haven't trained themselves and been thinking about this and making that time and making that space, what are they going to fall back on? Which is likely nothing. And that's where things I think can get out of control.
That's so good. It makes me think that I think it's just the awareness. Like people need to be aware that this may happen, that they are may fall into this, and just be aware of how you handle it. Because most of the time, like doom scrolling and those things, like I gained 50 pounds during COVID. I didn't realize that's what was happening, but at the end, I was like, why can't I wear any of my clothes? Because I wasn't aware of it. It was just little bit at a time. It just happened.
Yeah.
So I think this is so powerful because we're bringing awareness to this. Hey, pay attention. Pay attention. If you start finding yourself doom scrolling or, smoking or whatever, more than you were, that's a signal. That's a signal to pay attention to. So I think that's really, really good.
Yeah,
Good
we're
to
going to fill
share.
our time with something, right? If there is other time, people are going to fill it with something. What you choose to pour in, is really what you're going to get out of it, right? And that's with anything with us. And so, it's not, it could go either way. And I use that as an example because we've had a recent kind of example of that where people had some of that time. But I'm an optimist in general. And so I think is a great opportunity for people to do things that they maybe never had the time or space to do. But I'm also a realist in the point where I also know just, hurt people hurt people. There's people that are going through a lot of things. They don't have, not everybody's playing on the same playing field. A lot of people don't have safe environments, things like that, where it's going to be really hard for them to overcome, and they need to make other changes to, with the environment or whatever it is, to get out of a situation, to even have the self-awareness and being able to make that space and to calm down and pause if they're feeling like they're fighting for their lives or their safety or whatever. All that stuff is, it's fight or flight, right? So
Yeah.
if they're in that mode, then it's going to be really hard to plan and really fill something in. And so I also get that as well. But for the people who aren't facing kind of those scenarios, I see as an opportunity, maybe another renaissance time for us, as far as, in history, where people can, create more, think more, connect more, where we've been doing kind of like less of that. We've had technology to kind of do a lot of that for us. And so I'm generally an optimist about, what's going to happen, but I think we've seen the mixed bag of what happened, with COVID being a good example.
hmm This, as you're sitting here talking, when things like this come to my mind, I feel like I always need to share this. But when you were talking, I was thinking this would make a really good TED talk, a really good TEDx talk, comparing COVID and AI. Like, have you ever thought about that?
Just now.
Well, I'm throwing it out there. That message
Love it.
came to me, so I'm sharing it with
Thank
you
you.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that, because it's fascinating. I think most people haven't ever thought about the connection, but you're so right. Like, yeah, I think that would
It's
be
something recent.
amazing.
It's something recent, that we've gone through, that there's different circumstances, but the main thing is that kind of found time that we didn't have in our
hmm
lifetimes for a lot of people at scale. And then there's so much that we're seeing, several years out now, where there's obvious generational ripples that are going to happen and all sorts of different things, good, bad, and otherwise. But we have a lot of data on, also good, bad, and otherwise, of like what kind of transpired for people when you had specifically the lockdowns and people had that found time. And
Yeah,
and then what it did. And so if AI does that, but then that's life, and we don't have something like a pandemic and the fear and things like that, surrounding that portion of it, where it's just like, hey, there's just time. You wake up and normally you used to work and commuting, and that was 11 or 12 hours of your waking day. And now you maybe have an hour and 20 minutes, and you have 90% of the time that you didn't have, a week ago, a day ago, a month ago.
yeah,
What are you going to do?
yeah,
What do you want to do today?
right.
And
Yeah,
and
I always suggest that people at least start a list, like, of things that they might find interesting or want to try or enjoy doing or that brings them joy. Like I said, sometimes it's hard at first, but just
mhm.
keep a running list. I use the notes in my phone, or you can physically write it somewhere, so that if you don't know what to do and you have time, you can at least refer to that list and say, "Oh, which one of these can I do right now?" Um, Going
That's
back
good.
to, yeah, it is helpful. I found it really helpful. Um, if it, it's just so it's coming through, so I've got to. It's like I got to finish this loop. The loop isn't closed yet. I thought it was, but it wasn't. Okay, so I'm supposed to ask you that if you want me to recommend you for a TEDx talk, that I'm happy to do that. We can get together and because you can either, when it comes to TEDx applications, I filled out hundreds of these, by the way, for myself. Um, but you can also fill them out for other people. So I'm happy to recommend you because I fully believe this would be a great one. And if that's something you would like for me to do for you, then we'll get together afterwards
Absolutely. Let's
sometime.
plan for that. Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
generosity and that offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of
Thank you.
course. Yeah. Hey, if I can't get on the stage, let me help someone else get up there,
Yeah. I've known a few people that do it, and I know a few other people
Yeah.
that help and collaborate with people who, have things to say and messages that they think need to be amplified, that help them get on there too. So it's good. It's good to help others, whether you walk the walk or you understand the process, right? You can open the door for somebody else. That's all valuable. The main
Yeah,
thing is the
absolutely.
message, no matter who's, we're all just individuals, and a lot of our things and our thoughts aren't original to ourselves per se. They're an accumulation of our lived experiences and things that we believe,
Yeah.
and also they're ever changing. So a lot of people get tied and married to their thoughts and on things, and it's like, you're not your thoughts. You're able to think, and you're able to change your opinions, and they do change regardless of. A lot of people think, oh, they're stuck in their ways. I'm like, no, there's things that they've changed their mind on. Everybody has.
It's so true. One of the things that we go through in my self-discovery course is we identify like what the beliefs that we have, are those the beliefs that we have, or are they somebody else's beliefs
Mhm.
that were taught to us? Like we have to identify, is the way I'm living and the way I'm thinking, is that me, or is that something I've been taught to think and taught to live and believe? And it's
Are we
so
parroting?
powerful when you figure out what's really you and what you've been taught and you can separate them. Whoa, it's life changing.
Yeah, to unpack some of those things and go, hey, am I just parroting something that I heard a bunch of times? Or is this actually
Yeah.
something that I own? Or how tied to this? There's times I'm talking with friends and we're just having a conversation and I'll say something out loud that I've thought and I'll share my opinion about something. And as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I'm already changing my opinion. I don't even like how it comes out, or whatever, there's certain things that we have much stronger beliefs on and we're much more likely to, die on that hill or whatever. But there's a lot of things where I'm just like, hey, I'm open to new information. I'm an ever curious person. There's lots of
Yeah,
things that
me
I'm
too.
curious about and pursue. And so I'm like, great. I don't need to have an opinion to be curious. I can lean into things and you start making some understandings and how you're processing it. But I'm like, you don't need to have a stance on everything. And I think we're being pushed with that way, culturally, society, politically, is we have to have a stance on everything. And I'm like, no, you
Ah,
don't. You don't have to do
mm,
anything. Like part of it is if you choose to, and if you feel strong about something, great, communicate that, believe that. But really, most people don't have to take a stance on every single thing because it's not something that they're actually really focused on. And so you see that a lot of times where like athletes are, hey, you're an athlete, you're the best basketball player in the world. What do you think about, this political situation? And it's like, well, they spend all their time in the gym. Like they're not
yeah.
really, maybe they have an opinion, but like, why would we value that, so much? And I think that's where we start stepping on our toes a little bit. And when people are quarreling online or whatever it is, and that's, it's like that person is an amazing basketball player. They've had to put in so much work and effort towards that they're probably one of the least qualified people to talk about, societal issues or politics unless they have a personal connection to those things.
Yeah. I used to be one of those people who really was, I had something I was standing on a hill to die for. And then when I really dove into authenticity and learned who I am apart from what I've been taught, like I'm so open-minded now. Like I don't care if someone doesn't believe or think the same way I do. I can say, well, that's what you believe. That's great. That's not what I believe, but it's okay. I'm
Yeah,
not trying to convince you that you have to believe the way I do. And let me tell you, Eric, it's a much more peaceful way to live. I'm
it
like,
is.
why don't we just let people be who they are and quit
Yeah.
trying to get them to be like us? That's not the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have forgotten the concept of agreeing to disagree and the power that comes with
Yeah.
that. That's okay. We're all individuals and that's what we celebrate, not, shame everybody else because they're not carbon copies of ourselves and our thoughts
Right.
and our beliefs. And once again,
Yeah.
if our beliefs are shifting, then what are we really asking someone to do to mold the beast? Like that's impossible. So we're kind of setting ourselves up if that's what, we choose to do. And we've seen some of that, the narrative. We've never been so far apart. I don't really believe that. I think that there's more ways for people to connect, but it is that intentionality. If they don't, then these narratives do take over and it becomes common knowledge. But I think there's more opportunities, with technology and travel and things like that, where we live in a fantastic time. Where you can literally, get on a plane and fly anywhere, around the world if you want to, and take other transportation and, get exposed to new cultures and different things. And just completely, blow up whatever preconceived notion you have about anything. You can go do that. You can go
Yeah.
online, you can do all these different things that we have where, a very small fraction of people that have ever lived have had all these resources that are there. So I feel we're in this really amazing, lucky, uh, fortuitous time to kind of choose our own adventure because you really can, where a lot of people are just fighting for survival and to get food, shelter, water, the basic things, and didn't have time to focus on philosophy or consciousness or making space, having rest time, these different things that that we've talked about that you do so well and encourage others to do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's holy cow. I don't even recognize who I was compared to who I am now, I just love the person I am now. You know, I'm not saying that from a conceited place, but just embracing who I am authentically. It's beautiful, you know, in everyone. And I think I'm just a living example of that. I really, really share who I am and what I do simply as a permission slip for other people to do the same. People
Right.
tell me a lot, you're a permission slip for people to be vulnerable and authentic. And I'm like, well, good. That's good. That's, you know, that's a positive thing. So I really am grateful. And
I like
I
that
know
as
our
a
time
statement
is,
too. Yeah.
yeah, no. I know our time is slipping away. I'm like, oh my gosh, go ahead and finish your statement, but I do want to make sure I give you time to talk about what you do, how people can reach you, all of that.
No, I was just saying I wanted to validate that that permission slip statement. That's another good, thing to share with people as well, because a lot of people need kind of permission. They seek it, and so if you're
Yes.
someone who can bear that message and be a living example of that, I think that's going to continue to help a lot of people in their own right of what they're able to do. And sometimes they just need that little nudge, and as we see when something's new, the fear of the unknown is the biggest fear, but just getting started with something, a lot of times people are like, oh, once you start it, there's, then they just find their way. But it's that getting that first
Yeah.
nudge. So if you can give them permission, give them permission. And if that's what they need from you, then you're that bearer of that message. I think that's fantastic, Amy.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. So yeah, go ahead, share with us because I don't honestly know a lot about what you do. I've loved this conversation. I'm like, we could talk for hours, but I do want you to share a little bit about what you do, how people can find you, and how you can help people.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you providing me the space and doing what you do, Amy.
Of
I own
course.
Uncorked Media Group. We are a strategy forward marketing agency. There's a lot of people in marketing that do different things, and things like AI have created a lot of overnight marketers. But what we do that kind of differentiates us is we look at a business holistically, and we really understand what their unique strategy is. A lot of companies have gotten used to buying tactics and products and services from marketing companies, and then they're just supposed to stitch it all together and kind of hope that it works. We call this lack of strategy spray and pray. And so we've learned that a lot of companies of all sorts of different sizes don't really actually have a marketing strategy. They have marketing budget and they throw it at, the products and services. And while that can be somewhat effective, it's never going to be as, productive and efficient. We talked about that before, as understanding what's going on, having your baseline. Who are you really talking to? Who is your audience? Who are your strategic partnerships? What is your purpose in the marketplace? What really differentiates your company? A lot of times companies are, and especially with like a lot of the AI tools, I call it the grand vanillification of things that has happened, because if you just let AI do it for you, it's just regurgitating best practices. It's not going to allow you to be a thought leader or be a really different
Mm.
company. So while there's great tools like that, we've seen that the human element of someone that can look at where they are in the marketplace, understand how they are different from everybody else that does what they do. Even if they have five competitors on their street, each one will have a different marketing strategy based on who they are, their presence, who with their values, all those type of things. So we work as a strategic advisor first, and we develop a marketing strategy for companies. And then we have a full team to help them implement that. My wife and I own the company. We have a team of 10 that supports us. So we can build websites and help people with social media content and run their ads for them. But everything we do has purpose and understanding. We validated it, and I call it measure twice before we cut once.
Oh,
Kind of a construction analogy.
yeah.
And so the whole idea is you're planning. And while we can't predict the future, just like I talked about the intentionality earlier, when we have that intentionality, odds are we're going to do better than if we're just winging it, and just throwing money at things and time at things. And small to mid-sized businesses, their biggest advantage is that they can move fast and make decisions, but will usually budget and things like that. They can't outspend the big guys. So
Hmm.
strategy is really their unique differentiator. And so our company prides ourselves on that. We just celebrated 13 years in business. And
Wow.
we're really happy about the impact that we're able to create. So we work with all sorts of different types of industries. It could be, high-end home services to people in the medical profession, other, professional services like attorneys. But we've also worked with a lot of nonprofit organizations, and that hits our heart as well, because we have a lot of
Oh,
experience from volunteering and and giving back on our own right. And they are nonprofits are supposed to be really well run businesses on their own right. A lot of people think that nonprofits should make no profit, and actually the best ones are
Yeah.
really good businesses. It's just a it's just a designation that they have. But like donor messaging and corporate giving, and a lot of these things are giving's down the last several years. And so our
Hmm.
nonprofits are the things that fill the gaps from government programs or lack of things, and they're part of that community fabric. They're part of those things that give people purpose and really like help establish community. So we enjoy working with those type of organizations as well, and because they are really creating impact, especially your local nonprofits, your local land trust, and saving land and making sure that we're building responsibly. Not that we're going to stop bulldozers, but that we keep the most, precious area. So that way people enjoy the parks or the natural areas to go hiking in, and it actually improves property values. Or, people that are on the front lines of, helping families that of domestic abuse,
Hmm.
if there's people that are hungry, we have, food banks, those type of things. And so we worked with a lot of those different organizations in different arenas, people that help children, first responders, our veterans that, sometimes get their, after they've fought and given everything, they get their backs turned on them and they have lack of resources. So the
Yeah.
nonprofits and communities like that, we really enjoy working with them as well and helping them tell their message and try to get more donors and more support and more partnership through that as well.
That's just so beautiful. I love your heart for nonprofits. I have a heart for nonprofits too, but it does make a difference. It really does when you're supporting nonprofits because they are so needed. And now, where are you located?
We are in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's beautiful Scottsdale,
Okay.
Arizona. So yeah.
Yeah. But I'm assuming you work with anyone because you do it
We work with clients.
online.
Yeah, we do a lot here in the community, so we're pretty well known, in the Arizona market. But we work with clients out of state and even a couple out of the country. And so, yeah, people can reach out to us. Our website's uncorkedmediagroup.com is our website, so people can check that out. But yeah, our biggest thing is finding right fits. We often are working
Yeah.
with companies through different phases of their growth. We're not like a hired hand that just hangs out for a couple months and does a project. We're usually working with them, and we become a collaborative, adaptable marketing department for them through different phases of their growth. And that's really our best
Hmm.
partnerships and what they look like. And so a lot of times people have just hired someone to help them get there, but when they get to the next step, they might need to hire somebody else. And if you don't have the right team, whether it's key contractors, advisors, people that guide you, or if you're a company that has employees, if you don't have good people around you, you're not going to be able to get to where you want to be, in business. And so
It's
we like
so
to be one of
true.
those trusted advisors, and be resourceful. And we often think of the business when we're looking at it, we think of it holistically and not just having marketing in a silo. We think how it impacts, operations and sales. And sometimes we might see that there's a sales problem that an organization has, and like we'll say, hey, forget spending more on marketing for the moment. Let's fix the sales problem, because we don't want to get a
Hmm.
sales team that isn't built up or can't convert more leads that they're not going to do. That's a waste. So let's fix that problem
Yeah.
first. So we also
Yeah.
have a lot of partnership, that we work with people from accounting, finance, sales, whatever it might be, technology, to try to help businesses in other ways. So it's not in our lane, but we also could bring somebody who we know and trust. And so we work with a lot of strategic partners like that. It might be HR. They might have a challenge with that. And it's like, well, let's get that problem solved first, and then let's focus on the marketing side of things. And especially with like exit planning, and that's a big thing going back to the baby boomers we were talking about earlier, in that generation that's getting this. A lot of them are trying to exit. Most people don't know that about 80% of the companies that are for sale don't sell. And I learned this last year myself, and it shocked me
Mm.
because it's often their retirement plan. It's where all their money is. It's they might have not had 401k or something like that. Like their business is literally their retirement. Well, what if you get ready to sell, or you have a medical emergency or something like that, and the business isn't worth what you thought it was in the marketplace? Or worse yet, often it's not ready to sell because it's too reliant upon the founder or the CEO or something
Right.
else. And so we've aligned ourselves even with people in the exit planning space, where people are, designing their business so that they could sell anytime, even if they're not. Maybe they're 10 years out from selling. If you design your business more intentional now and it's a well operating machine, we've seen that it's a lot more fulfilling for them while they're operating the business. And then if they choose to exit, whatever that means for them, it could be operationally exit, and they go and they, like have the found time that we talked about earlier, or maybe they, pass it on to the next generation, or maybe they sell it to private equity. Whatever exiting means to them, they're prepared to do it because they have better systems and processes, and they have a healthier business with that. So we've enjoyed being part of several different companies that work together and trying to help these entrepreneurs really do the thing that we want them all to do, is to build the business that they've always dreamed of and exit on their own terms.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I love that. I will make sure to put your link in the show notes so that people can just click on it and reach you really easily, really simply. And this has been such a wonderful conversation. Eric, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for making space, and the invite to be on here, Amy, and also sharing what you do and your story. It's very inspiring. And so I really appreciate the time and connection.
You are so welcome. I'm just really, really grateful that we have connected, and I look forward to staying connected. For those of you who are watching and listening, thank you so much for being here. Please share this so that we can share this hope with more people. And if you would like to know more about me, my story, my books, my courses, anything about me, speaking engagements, email me at amy@getamyshelp.com, or just go to my website, getamyshelp.com. And until next time, I will be here holding space for you. Thank you for being here. And to my guest, thank you for your honesty, your courage, and your truth. It's an honor to hold space for people like you. If something in this episode stirred something in you, if you breathed deeper, softened, or felt a pull inward, consider this your invitation. Whether you're ready to share publicly or prefer to remain anonymous, I'd love to hold space for you too. This work isn't just for podcasts, it's for people everywhere. And I'm bringing it into businesses, schools, communities, organizations, anywhere humans need a place to be and for someone to hold space for them. To learn more or to schedule your own session or to be a guest on this podcast, visit www.getamyshelp.com or just reach out to me. I'll meet you with open arms and a quiet, sacred seat. Until next time, thank you for being beautifully, unapologetically human.